Here's a fast and easy way to start placing fur guides on a character for production. This is great for matching already existing concept art, where the flow of the hair is already established and you're expected to match it. I usually prefer doing this via tracing to be as close to the concept art as possible. So I set up image planes, have the model. First, you make sure that the mesh has UVs. Then you go to Generate, Make Paintable, and then you go to Generate again. Paint Effects tool, then you open the tool settings for the Paint Effects tool and you disable Draw as Mesh because we need to create the Paint Effects strokes, which is a really nice kind of forgotten tool in Maya. Instead of drawing the stroke as a mesh, we're going to draw it as a curve, and then you start drawing your curves on the surface. It's really great for establishing flow, and now that we have the image planes in the scene, we can actually start matching the concept now. I turn off the grid, switch to the tool, start placing the curves. Obviously I'm doing that really quickly just to demonstrate. Switch to the front view, delete the ones you don't want, and then continue. This technique is inspired by Nazar Noschenko. I saw his Blender tutorial doing it on eyebrows, and it really made me think how useful this could be in Maya on fur, for example, anything that's short. You can always do the overlap, so you can start drawing other curves under the main ones. As long as the roots don't overlap, you'll be able to push those out away from the surface later. Switching to side view again. And then now I'm going to draw in perspective to fill in the gaps. Now I switch to the back view. Remove the curves that don't match. It's really quick for establishing flow. Now I continue to work on it in perspective, and I'm looking at the concept on the second screen. You can also do very precise flow changes like that. You can make this very refined. Now I'm going to stop working on this side because I'm going to mirror it later. One important thing to make note of is that you have to draw the strokes from the same direction. So the origin, the root CV, the first point of the curve needs to be the same on all the strokes. So I'm drawing them from top to bottom in this case. Now that I'm kind of happy with the block in, I'm going to select all the paint strokes, and I'm going to go to Modify, Convert, Paint Effects to Curves, and I click that. It's going to go through all the strokes, the Paint Effects strokes, and convert them to curves. If I go to the outliner, see the old paint strokes, and select those and delete them. And now what I'm left with is just the Maya NURBS curves. Select everything, Control G to group them, and then I'm going to delete all the old dummy groups that have nothing in them. Now I have one group with all the NURBS curves inside of it. I can then choose to mirror one side. So I duplicate that, group it, and then I'm going to mirror on X, -1. Then freeze transformations from Modify, Freeze. Now I can choose which section to keep out of this mirror. Isolate it, start deleting sections, maybe this one. And since it's in a group, I'm able to isolate it at any time and then delete big chunks. I can select that group, verify that my mirror is not overlapping. Looks like the roots aren't overlapping, which is good. Now I continue to draw on top of it again with the Paint Effects by going to the Paint Effects tool. Now I convert the remaining paint strokes, Modify, Convert, Paint Effects to Curves, delete the strokes, isolate the groups that have the new curves, select them in the viewport, Control G to group them, delete the old dummy groups. Now I select everything except for the mesh, and then I group it all together, then delete all the old groups. Now I need to make sure that the pivot of each curve is set to the first CV point, which is the root point. Select all the curves, isolate them, select them in the viewport, and then I go to select first CV, and then I go to modify, center pivot. And now if I select any curve, you'll see that the pivot is at the root, so I can now angle it out, and I can do this to a whole bunch of them at once. So for example, select the front, minus the mesh, and then I push them out. Also you can see I'm grabbing too much from the side there. Group, then hide, select the side. Maybe I grab too much from the back. Group, then hide, so I don't select them again accidentally. It's a good chunk. Push them out, group, hide, select the back ones. Push those out, but I'm noticing some of them here are going to the body, so I'm going to select them independently. Push them out like that. Now I show all the other groups. Isolate, group them again, Shift P, now unparent them from this group, delete the old group. Now it's ready to be used for a hair system like Xgen. After I've made sure that I've set the Maya project directory, I select the mesh, I go to create new description, choose placing and shaping guides, create that description. Now I select the curve group, go to utilities, select curves to guides, which will convert those curves, and then I make sure delete curves is on so that they go away and they only become guides. Now it's complete, and now I have guides. I can always go in when I see a spot that's empty, and then I start placing more guides, and now they will follow the other curves, the other guides. They will be interpolated. But at least the flow was established in a much easier way, and now I'm only left with the task of editing them and making sure it all works together nicely. And then I can still go in there and brush them and push out the silhouette to match the concept. And to make the groom lighter, I'm going to select all the guides, and then I go to rebuild, and then I change it to something like 5, and then I hit OK. Now what that does is reduces the amount of CV points per guide. I could have done this at the start also, before I converted them to guides, but this is also possible through Xgen. And now I hit generate preview, start seeing that the flow of the hair is already coming in nicely. Now I have an Xgen description preset that I've made, so I'm going to import that. Now that I've transferred my guides into a new description that has all my presets for the modifiers, I go to my first clumping modifier and I set up the maps to clump by guide, which will place a clump for each guide. Now if I hide the guides, see the flow has already been established. I can turn on anti-aliasing. I can also make a quick directional light. Enable shadows. Go to the directional light settings, the shadows, and change it to use depth map, and then bump up the resolution and bump up the filter size to maximum. That will give us a little bit softer shadow. I can also place the light how I like it, and then parent it under the camera, the perspective camera, drop it there, middle mouse drop it, and then I show the camera, and that will show the lights also. And now if I move perspective camera around, that light follows it. Now let me hide the image planes, go back to Xgen, change the density to be a little bit higher, twice as high, now even more so. Start seeing the modifiers kick in here, getting nice flow, and it's a really quick way to start to block in fur groom. Now obviously this will be tweaked further to match the silhouette, like this for example. Since I've updated the guides, I'll go to the modifiers on the first clumping modifier, go to setup maps, and then update the guides clumping. Hit save. If I scale some of those. Quickly change the shader color. Disable lock length so I can actually lengthen some of the guides. A good way to get softer shadows is, instead of cranking up the resolution very high to get the very sharp shadows that we're getting now, is to drop the resolution down actually to be something very low. And then the blur, the filter size over here takes care of that. It gives you a nice preview of kind of an AO look or a softer shadow. You can see when I toggle between normal shaded mode and lighting mode, it looks a little bit softer. Gives you kind of a rendered look, at least approximation of it. When I move, obviously flickers very much, but when I stop, you kind of get a sense of what it looks like, especially the overlap. I'm tweaking it in perspective while looking at it in the front view. For some reason, brushes don't work in the front view sometimes. Obviously taking care of the back as well to give it a little bit of volume and so on. And then you keep going and refining from there to match it a little bit better. I hope you see how useful it was to actually place the strokes directly on the surface initially by drawing them with the paint effects curves. This is a really fast way to block in. I hope this was helpful. Thanks for watching.